Do you remember when Saturday mornings belonged to cartoons? When you had to smack the side of the TV to get the picture to stop flickering? When your sneakers weren't just shoes, they were rocket boosters, guaranteed to make you run faster on the playground. If you do, welcome back. We're rewinding to the land of mixtapes, neon windbreakers, cassette tapes winding loose in your backpack, and enough sugar in your cereal bowl to send you into orbit. Here are 20 unforgettable things that made the 1980s pure magic. The dangerous playground equipment. Back then, playgrounds weren't padded. They were gladiator arenas. The metal slides turned into frying pans by noon. The jungle gyms were basically scaffolding. And the merry-go-round? A spinning wheel of doom that could launch you halfway across the park if your friends really put their backs into it. Seesaws were less fun balance activity and more, let's see if I can send my buddy to the moon. And yet, those bruises, those scraped knees, that chipped tooth, they weren't failures. They were trophies. Proof you were tough enough to survive childhood in the 80s. Roller rink hangouts. If the playground was where you earned scars, the roller rink was where you earned style. This was the original social network. The moment you stepped in, the smell of buttered popcorn and warm nacho cheese hit you. The disco ball spun, Madonna's Like a Virgin blasted through the speakers, and suddenly you weren't just skating, you were performing. Couples held hands and skated in perfect rhythm. Kids dared each other to skate backwards, and somewhere, someone always face-planted spectacularly to polite applause. The neon socks, the glow-in-the-dark bracelets, the sound of wheels scratching against polished wood, it wasn't just a hangout. It was a rite of passage. Cabbage Patch Kids riots. The Cabbage Patch craze was chaos wrapped in yarn hair. These dolls weren't just toys. They came with papers. Birth certificates signed by Xavier Roberts himself. You weren't just a kid. You were a legal guardian now. But the catch? Getting one felt like surviving a war zone. News footage showed parents elbowing, shoving, and diving into toy piles like they were storming a bunker. If you got one, you treated it like treasure. You didn't dare rename Becky Sue or Michael Dean. And if you somehow scored the Holy Grail twins, then congratulations, you were officially untouchable on the playground. TV sign-offs and the national anthem. Kids today will never understand the eerie magic of a TV sign-off. It's past midnight, your eyelids are heavy, and suddenly, the national anthem swells over grainy shots of flags waving and fighter jets roaring across the sky. Then the screen goes black. Static hums. That's it. The world has gone to sleep. No endless scrolling, just you, sitting in the dark, staring at that fading glow. Weirdly comforting, weirdly final. The smell of freshly mimeographed worksheets. If you were a kid in school back then, you remember this, the fresh mimeograph handouts. Purple ink, slightly warm, smelling like sweet chemicals. Teachers would pass them out and, without fail, every kid lifted it to their face for a deep sniff before even looking at the quiz. It was strange, it was probably toxic, and it was glorious. That smell is etched into the memory of every kid from the 80s. Chain letter mania. Forget TikTok trends. Chain letters were the original viral sensation. You'd get a folded piece of notebook paper warning that if you didn't copy it 10 times and pass it on, you'd be cursed forever. Some came with silly poems, others with creepy stories about kids who ignored the letter and met tragic ends. You'd sit at the kitchen table, writing out copies by hand, carefully addressing envelopes, licking stamps until your tongue felt like sandpaper, all to avoid bad luck. Looking back, totally ridiculous, but at the time, dead serious. The Walkman revolution. Owning a Sony Walkman was like owning a magic portal. Slide in your favorite cassette, snap it shut, press play, and suddenly the world melted away. Foam headphones clamped tight, music hissed with static, and you had your own private soundtrack. The real flex? Making mixtapes. Hours spent recording off the radio, fingers hovering over the record button, praying the DJ wouldn't ruin your perfect song by talking over the intro. And when the tape ran out, you either flipped it, or, if you were thrifty, rewound it with a pencil to save batteries. A lost art form. The glow of a wood-paneled console TV. The TV back then wasn't just a screen. It was a piece of furniture. Heavy, wood-paneled, with gold trim and a surface sturdy enough to hold a lamp, family photos, and maybe even a lace doily. Turning it off wasn't instant. The screen would shrink down into a glowing white dot, fading slowly like a dying star. And you'd sit there, hypnotized, waiting for it to disappear completely. Somehow it felt alive. Saturday morning cartoons. You didn't sleep in. You set your alarm, because this was your one sacred window. Pajamas on, cereal poured high enough to sink a battleship, and the glow of the TV filling the room. Smurfs, He-Man, Thundercats, Ghostbusters. The lineup was stacked. And the commercials? They weren't interruptions. They were events. The latest Nerf blaster, the shiniest Hot Wheels track, a sugar cereal that looked like it would make you fly. Missing an episode? Forget it. No reruns. No DVR. No YouTube clips to catch up later. You just had to wait. Which made every Saturday feel like Christmas morning every single week. Penny candy and corner stores. Before fun-sized packets came along, there was the true economy of childhood, penny candy. You'd jingle a handful of sweaty coins in your pocket all day, waiting for that trip to the corner store. Inside, rows of glass jars sparkled with rainbow-colored sugar bombs. Atomic fireballs, licorice ropes, sour gummies that made your eyes water. Each one carefully chosen, each one a treasure. The shopkeeper scooped them into a tiny brown bag, and by the time you made it halfway home, a sticky wet spot had already formed at the bottom. That bag wasn't just candy. It was happiness you could eat, one bite at a time. The jingle commercials that got stuck in your head. Some commercials weren't just ads. They were mini pop songs you couldn't escape. Jingles like, "I want my baby back ribs," or toy slogans that had you chanting in the lunchroom. Every kid could belt out, "My buddy," or "Kid sister," without missing a beat. They were so catchy, you didn't even need the product. The song itself lived rent-free in your brain for decades. Atari and early video games. Before consoles became cinematic masterpieces, there was Atari. Pixelated blocks pretending to be spaceships, frogs, and football players. The controllers were clunky, the graphics laughable now, but back then, it was magic. You'd sit cross-legged on the carpet, joystick in hand, convinced you were a pro gamer because you scored 100 points in Pong. Game cartridges sometimes needed a little blow of air to fix them, even though we all knew it didn't actually work. School lunch trays and mystery meat. Remember those plastic lunch trays divided into little sections? They carried culinary masterpieces like rectangle pizza slices, tater tots, and something the lunch lady swore was meatloaf. Chocolate milk cartons that never fully opened right. Jell-O that wobbled like it was alive. And of course, trading snacks at the table like it was the New York Stock Exchange. "I'll give you 2 cookies for your pudding cup." Childhood economics at its finest. Lisa Frank everything. If you were a kid in the 80s, chances are your school supplies looked like a unicorn ate a rainbow and exploded. Lisa Frank notebooks, folders, stickers, and pencil cases were everywhere. Neon dolphins, glittery tigers, rainbow-colored pandas. It was loud, bright, and impossible to ignore. Owning Lisa Frank meant you had style, and everyone wanted to borrow your stickers even though they never gave them back. Scratch and Sniff stickers. Speaking of stickers, remember Scratch and Sniff? Teachers gave them out like Olympic medals. You'd scratch the surface and get a whiff of fake grape, chocolate, popcorn, or something mystery-scented that smelled like glue. Collecting them in sticker books was serious business. And if you had the rare ones, like pizza or bubblegum, you instantly leveled up in playground status. Boom boxes on the shoulder. Nothing said cool, like lugging around a massive boom box blasting Run DMC or Michael Jackson. It wasn't portable, it wasn't subtle, but it made you feel like you owned the block. People would walk around with these monsters on their shoulders, tape decks spinning, bass rattling the sidewalk. At the park, the beach, or even just outside your house, the boom box wasn't just music, it was a statement. Pogs and collectible crazes. Before Pokemon cards and Funko Pops, kids were obsessed with Pogs. Little cardboard discs with wild designs, lightning bolts, skulls, cartoon characters, and of course the heavier slammers. Recess turned into tournaments, with kids stacking towers and trying to flip as many Pogs as possible with a single slam. Some kids played fair, others bent the rules, but one thing was certain. If you had the coolest slammer, you ruled the playground. Choose your own adventure books. Kids who grew up in the 80s didn't just read stories, they controlled them. Choose your own adventure. Books let you pick the hero's path, flipping to page 78 if you wanted to explore the cave, or page 42 if you wanted to run away. Sometimes you ended up with treasure, sometimes you ended up dead in a pit of snakes. The thrill of choice made reading feel like gaming long before iPads and apps. Light-up sneakers and Velcro shoes. Yes, shoelaces existed, but if you had Velcro sneakers, or even better, the ones that lit up when you ran, you were the envy of the playground. Kids would stomp their feet just to show off the lights flashing in the dark, or rip their Velcro straps as loudly as possible so everyone noticed. Practical? Maybe not. But in kid world, those shoes basically made you a superhero. Fast food toys and Happy Meal collectibles. Before the internet told you what was in the bag, opening a Happy Meal was like unwrapping a mystery gift. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, they all competed to have the coolest toys. Tiny Transformers, Muppet Babies figurines, Disney movie tie-ins. Kids begged their parents to stop for burgers just to collect the next piece in the set. And if you managed to complete a collection, you were untouchable. Arcades and quarters lined up on the machine. Long before online gaming, there was the arcade. Dark rooms glowing with neon lights and the sound of buttons clicking like machine guns. Kids lined quarters along the screen to claim next game. And if you were good at Pac-Man or Galaga, people actually watched you play like you were a celebrity. The smell of pizza grease in the air, the hum of machines, the rush of trying to beat your friend's high score. The arcade was its own universe. TV guides and flipping through channels. Streaming didn't exist. If you wanted to know what was on, you either flipped through the TV guide or risked it all by channel surfing. You'd scroll through a dozen channels, adjusting the antenna, trying to land on something that wasn't static. Sometimes you'd stumble onto a movie halfway through and just commit to watching it. If you missed the first half, too bad. No rewind. Slap bracelets. The accessory that doubled as a weapon, slap bracelets. A strip of metal covered in neon fabric that you'd smack against your wrist and watch curl around instantly. Every kid had one, every teacher hated them, and every parent swore they were dangerous. They probably were, but they were also the coolest $5 accessory of the decade. Trapper Keepers. The ultimate status symbol in school wasn't sneakers, it was your Trapper Keeper. Bright colors, Velcro flap, endless pockets for doodles, notes, and contraband gum. Pulling one out of your backpack was basically flexing on your entire class. And when that Velcro ripped open in the middle of a silent classroom, every head turned. Power move. Riding in the back of the station wagon. No seatbelts, no safety laws, just you and a bunch of kids rolling around in the way back of a wood-paneled station wagon. You'd sprawl out like it was a mini living room on wheels, waving at other cars through the giant back window, maybe lying down and watching the sky fly past. Road trips weren't comfortable, but they were full of laughter, snacks, and endless games of I Spy. That feeling of wonder. More than anything, growing up in the 1980s was about a certain feeling, a mix of wonder, curiosity, and freedom that's hard to capture today. No smartphones to track you, no endless scroll to distract you. Just you, your friends, and a whole neighborhood to explore until the streetlights came on. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and for those who lived it, the magic never really fades. So now I've got to ask you, which of these memories do you miss the most? And if you want to keep stepping back in time with me, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Because the past may be gone, but here, it's always just one play button away.